We have one last question, and it's actually interesting that you brought up about the Cavalera Boys, because it's actually the Cavalera Boys that have actually triggered this question. Album re-releases, remasters, or re-recordings, are these a good thing? So obviously the Cavalera have gone back to the early was it Morbid Visions, and re-recording it. The question is this a good thing? Do we like bands go out? Because we see a lot of also re-recording, like Megadeth went back and they remixed and remastered all of Euthanasia and other albums, and
I think they did their whole back catalogue.
They did.
I think.
And do we like this? Do we think it's a bad idea? What's your thoughts? Nick's got a thought by the looks of it.
Yeah, sorry. The reason I jump in is because I'm worried I'm going to forget. Basically, the fact we're talking about it now means it is a good idea, because obviously it rekindles that kind of passion for that album. Can you put that away? It rekindles that passion for those records.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's all, once again, it's that kind of.
People who might not have heard him will then get to hear him as well. So
it's clever marketing of going, look, we've done this, let's do it again. Check it out. It's a bit like, remaking a film, which might end up being crap, but at least people start talking about it and go back to the original. So I think
it's rare that you hear a remaster and go, wow, that sounds like world-beatingly different now. Like
there you go.
It's always quite subtle, but
it might be a fail, right? But it's still, the fact is, people are still talking about it, and you're bringing traffic to, whether it be internet traffic or physical traffic to buying some merch at a gig or whatever it may be, you're still in the front of your mind, and it's rekindling something that was great at the time, bringing it back, remastering it, putting it back out there,
reliving it.
Doesn't matter on whatever you guys' opinions are. At the end of the day, it's an idea that tends to go down well and bring back that kind of passion for that record. But
I'm definitely not against them.
Nice, fair play.
I'm not. Well, the fact they exist, I'm not against. I've never actually heard a remastered one, which I've actually preferred more than the original, because I've heard the original in its first case. What I always find is it's always overproduced. They take all the rawness, they take out all the energy of it, and then they, like on some of the Megadeth ones, you started hearing like bits of key arrangements and stuff in it, and you're like, what have you done? You've taken a great track and you've ruined it.
I quite liked Killing Is My Business. I quite liked that remaster, but the other albums I wasn't really like, because they all sounded pretty great as they were anyway.
Yeah.
Especially albums like Rust in Peace and stuff like that. You don't really want to touch that.
What's your opinion on taking a perfectly well-produced album and then
I was just going to say, there are some albums that just don't need to be remastered. Really.
Opeth Deliverance, someone did that.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it was Steve Wilson, actually. I'm not sure. They remastered Deliverance, which already sounded great at the time. And then what you've just said, Dave, they kind of brought out some bizarre elements on the record which weren't there originally, but also didn't add anything to it. It's just like, there's reverb on the snare.
I think the Judas Priest album Painkiller, the remaster of that is notoriously awful, as one of the worst remasters ever made.
The original album was a piece in time. It was that from that era, and just brutal guitars. Just right in your face, guitars, bass drums, and snare drums, and just vocals that just went through your eyeballs. Is the back.
Yeah. But if the recording and master was originally, not amazing, and then somebody, they come out with a really good remaster, then I can see that that's nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
Nevermore, Enemies of Reality. When they released the album, I remember when it came out. Great record musically. The production was absolutely terrible. I don't know whether it was the production or the mastering, because they had to change studios halfway through. I think it had a flooding in the studio or something. Something happened. The record label, I think, was Century Media. They pressured them to put it out, and it sounded like mud. It was just the worst sounding record of the time. But I knew, listening to it, this is probably the best Nevermore album they've put out. And then thankfully, I think Andy Sneap got hold of it and remastered it, and it sounded mint. And now I can listen to it. So that's a prime example of taking something that was, down the toilet and turning it into listenable music. Apart from that, apart from a marketing ploy, and get people to talk about it like we are now, what is the point? Is the question.
So on that, I was bought this for my birthday. It's the revisited version of Revolver, and it's been called like the best thing that's happened to the Beatles. I don't know if you guys are Beatles fans or not, but this is probably the best album.
That's not black metal.
The male disappointed.
Although it influenced Charles Manson, so it did have quite a malevolent influence.
The Beatles needed more blast beats, let's be honest.
Yeah, they did.
If you are a Beatles fan, this is the album you have to have a listen to, because it's taken that 60s mono and putting it into what we now conceive as a really well produced album. But as you've all said, it's really a case of whether it's worth bringing up to date, whether it's, and I'll come back to this Sepultura. I have heard the Morbid Visions and I fucking love it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always liked the early version, but it's not something I can go jogging to.
Does it bring it to life?
No, absolutely. It really brings everything up. And, just listening to it makes it sound like it's still got that very gruff kind of, there's the echoey lyrics, there's the proto black metal in it. And I just fucking love it. And I have no problem with that as long as it's done well. But as you said, like if they're going to redo an album and it sounds like shit, then there's no fucking point.
Yeah, if you take an album that sounds like shit and make it good, happy days.
Yeah.
Dave, my view on this is all for re-recordings. I love re-recorded versions of the songs. I'm looking forward to the Sepultura stuff. Sodom, In the Sign of Evil is a classic example. Their EP from late 80s.
I didn't hear that.
It's absolutely terrible, but it's classic. It's as Nick said, it sort of sets it in that time. But I love the re-recorded versions of the songs on that EP. You know, they're brought up to date, but they've re-recorded it. I'm not worried about remasters and remixing and everything, but re-recordings, yeah, all day long. I love all that stuff. You know, there's many that I could name, and you know, the Sepultura ones are a good example. You know, they were very raw, very basic, but they were of that time. But I'm looking forward to the sort of 21st century versions. But also, as Nick said, it is a marketing ploy. It's a bit of a money spinner as well. So, again, it's one of those topics that people have got, dividing views on.
Yeah, so a lot of it's down to labels as well. So if the labels see it as an album that they want to read, they'll go for it.
I'm going to buy it, no matter what. I don't care what you guys say. I'm going to buy it.
That's true. What about buying albums that you've already bought? You know, buying a remaster of an album that you've already paid for once.
Which clearly you've done with Revolver, but I'm guessing you've got one on CD and that's the vinyl.
No, well, I'm waiting for my dad to die because then I'll get his LP collection.
Still have the original one. He'll have the original 12. Yeah, okay.
Then I can compare them, and then I'll come back to you.
Does your dad what? Is your dad going to watch this?
I doubt it. He's not fake. I love you, Dad.